Hi, everybody. How you doing? Linda G here with Sean Briscoe, our sort of an expert on political. What would you call it?
I've worked in politics for too long to not know stuff at this point. But I am an expert. I'm a consultant. People hire me because I do this work. So
We got Andre. I invited him because that's where I saw you, and
yeah.
I was so excited. I posted you on my page. Down below is, oh no, that's SteamYard. Sorry, I got the wrong thing on here. Sorry, you guys. Let me change that real quick. I put a banner up. Oh, they accidentally did StreamYard. Okay, so how do I remove this banner? Okay. He sent me his link, you guys. He's got a YouTube channel.
I do.
And I just need YouTube. Okay. Copy. And let's paste. Sorry about that, you guys. There it is. There we go.
There I am.
So you can check him out. But let me tell you, him and I were just talking. I'm like just through the roof excited about the stuff he has to say. Let's start off with the first thing you were telling me.
Okay.
About the campaign manager for President Biden was on the Morning Joe.
Yeah, she was on MSNBC this morning. It was really great. Honestly, it's just nice to see them pushing back on this bizarre narrative. They've been relatively quiet, and what it is they're actually running a campaign, and so to it's kind of like a big boat. It doesn't turn on a dime, especially when you've got 1,000 different people working all at the same time. National campaigns are grueling. I worked with Obama in 2008, and that was an 18-month campaign because we started in March of 2007, and we were all crying when he won because for a couple of reasons. One, Obama won, and two, it was over. We could all now go to sleep. Some of us hadn't been asleep in like 4 or 5 days at that point. So
but wasn't his numbers sort of like teetotaling for a little while, and then you always knew he would win based on the numbers, correct?
Actually, no. But in 2000, so you got to understand the situation we're in. 2007, it was bad. That was the giant implosion of everything. It was incredible. It was like COVID without COVID. The economy had gone to crap. In Texas, where if Texas gets the sniffles, the rest of the country's got Ebola. Because we're an economy that pulls money out of the dirt in Texas. So when we were in trouble, we knew everything was going south. I remember driving up and down I-75 here in Dallas, and there was nobody on it because gas was.
I live in the San Francisco.
$4 and $5 a gallon, and that would be in today's money like $14 a gallon. It's no joke. It was insane. So March of 2007, a lot of us, had lived through enough Bush that we were good.
Right.
And that was my, I had friends that, had to go fight that war. I'm an ex-gen. So, I had friends that joined the Navy and spent 16 years in a desert because of that war. And so a lot of us were actually already very busily trying to work in 2006 during the midterms to change Congress so that there'd be some kind of check and balance over the military-industrial complex that the Bush administration had fed just whatever they wanted. Dick Cheney and that whole thing, Halliburton, all that nonsense that was going on, just spending money. Conservatives aren't conservative.
And making money too.
Oh yeah, just borrowing and spending, tons of it. The Cheneys made out like bandits. Go look at who owns Halliburton stock back then. It's all the guys who were also funny making the decisions to, go into countries that had nothing to do with 9/11. So
right,
fun. Exactly. So that was the environment. So we had been, working in those races since 05 through 06. By 07, we were just angry. And so I swear to God, it started out with me and 5 people at a coffee shop on Greenville Avenue in Dallas. And that day I think it's like March 17th or something, we formed Obama Dallas like that minute. And there were 6 of us. Now, fast forward 18 months, and you're looking at an organization that had knocked on 400,000 doors, all volunteer driven. Like the Saturday before the March 4th primary in 2008, Saturday, we knocked on 35,000 doors. That Saturday. So, yeah, no one's ever been able to repeat that. But we had 6,000 volunteers. You give me 6,000 volunteers, I'll do anything you want. It's just a matter of data organizing at that point. And people I work with have been doing this almost as long as I have. And at that point, I mean, I'll never forget, I was sitting, because I was the data director, for lack of a better, I was a founding member of Obama Dallas, and I was in charge of data. So just realized my phone's not on silent. Hold on a second.
I just put my phone on silent.
Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, pretend you're in a movie.
But Sean, you were just talking about, they said they went to 100,000 doors.
Yes, 100,000 doors in a week is what you said.
Give me the numbers you were saying.
So what you're looking at is, so you can imagine, I would say that they probably talked to somewhere between 12 and 15,000 people in this past week. Keep in mind, it's all post-debate. It's all during the GOP primary. I mean, the GOP convention. So they're really getting people that are being inundated with a lot of negative news, negative press about Biden, and, should he stay in? Should he get out? Blah, blah, blah. You got Schiff in California opening his mouth for no reason. Oh, actually, he does have a reason. I'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But there's just lots of negative news. Well, anyway, 76% of the people they spoke with, according to what we heard on NBC this morning, 76% of them were like, all Biden all day. Dark Brandon, let's go get him, And then they had about 15% that were like, oh, I haven't really decided. And then they had a certain percentage that probably didn't wish to share. And a lot of people, and there's always that percentage that doesn't want to share. They're not even going to tell you they're undecided. They're just not even going to tell you. And they're not even going to tell you what their top 3 things are that they're most worried about, because, it's very private. And I respect that. If you want to keep your political ideas and your understanding of the world private, and when you get to the ballot box, that's when you make your decision, more power to you. I hope you read, some stuff before you get to that ballot box. But a lot of times it's, it's the gut, it's a lot of gut. And so, so 76% said they're behind. That's a great sample. Also, they talked to we'll say 15 people, probably asked 5 to 10 questions. We'll say 10 questions just to keep the math easy. So 10 times 15,000 is 150,000 questions. The amount of data they out of those 5 states with, huge and accurate. If you go look at polling these days, it's all done by phone first. So you don't actually know, and we talked about this earlier, you don't actually know who you're talking to, right? So when I go to a door, or I have a canvasser goes to a door, and they knock on that door, they know, because we know, our data tells us there's 2 registered voters, Jim and Jane. Jim's 56, Jane's 48. So when a 35-year-old female answers the door, that's not Jane. Whereas on the phone, you don't know that.
Right.
It could be Jane, could not be, who knows? You don't know. So field programs are insanely accurate. I've been able to predict within half a percentage point, 2 weeks out, if we're going to win or lose. I've been able to show that, hey, the media is not working, or the messaging is not working, or we're not getting these kind of reports that we should be getting because we're not seeing it in the field. So that's when they'll add more television, or do more advertising on radio, switch it up a little bit, change the messaging. Like, hey, these are the three things that people care about, and we're not talking about any of them, then we'll change the messaging and say, hey, well, we got lots of opinions on these things. Let's go talk about that. And then people will get more engaged. That's how field works. I always tell candidates, kind of like your campaign's a submarine, and your field program is your echolocation. You send it all out, and whatever bounces back is what's out there. And it's your sensor sweep. It's everything that's going on, and your feedback and the process and the understanding of what that feedback means will help your campaign. It'll help your television, your radio, your mail, all of it, because you're able to customize it to what you're actually hearing in the field, as opposed to just, these are the things I care about. Well, you're a candidate, you're one vote. We got to talk to everybody. And just because a candidate might be very passionate about something doesn't necessarily mean it's what everyone really cares about. It just might be their pet issue.
So you mentioned something to me that I found interesting. The financial consequences of changing in midstream.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a commission called the Federal Elections Commission, right? And they basically manage the how and when and how much and where you can get money, spend money, use money in federal election campaigns. They're the gatekeeper. They have a lot of rules, a lot of regulations. Like, so let's say I've run quite a few congressional races. They're federal, so they have, and every state has their version of this for campaign finance. So you have to report, and some states have finance limits and some states don't. Like Texas, you could drop $1 million on a state house candidate in Texas, and it's totally legal.
Is it legal here in California? Because when
California is different, I think they have finance limits in California.
Oh, because when Governor Brown was running and that woman ran against him, she put more money in than she was a millionaire, and she still lost.
Yeah, well, you can give yourself as much money as you want, but in Texas, let's say you're running a bunch of gas stations, and you want the regulations around how the states license or do whatever to those gas stations. Well, you can drop $1 million on a state house candidate, have them push a bill for you. That's a thing in Texas. We have no campaign finance limits. Okay. On the federal level, they do, right? So the Federal Elections Commission, I'll try and not use too much alphabet soup, because there's a political drinking game that we play. It's all just alphabet soup, and you got to figure out what everyone's talking about. So DNC, DSC, DCCC, all FIC, all that stuff. It's anyway, it's a joke. Anyway, so the Federal Election, the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. So if we take in money, like we had a candidate, our luggage got lost. So I had a candidate with no suits, and we couldn't take money from the campaign and buy him a suit for the campaign. You can't do that. So that's how much of the minutia the FEC is. So like he could use his own money to go buy a suit, just like any of us can. But we couldn't use campaign money to buy something that would obviously be used for the campaign. Right. But those are the rules, and those are the rules. So the Federal Election Commission has a whole bunch of those. So one of those rules is that you're forming a committee, right? Almost like a nonprofit organization. Any money that's on the check, so for example, the Biden-Harris campaign or the committee to elect Biden-Harris for president, that money stays in that committee. It can't go anywhere unless Biden and Harris say yes, it can. So they can take that money and give it to the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Committee.
Can they do it for individual people running who are complaining that the donor stopped giving because he was running?
No, so there's limits to that. You can give it to other. So the DNC is a PAC, just like anything else. So they can move that money there, and vice versa. But when you're talking about individual candidates, that's when it gets kind of tricky. So what will happen is, like, you hear about those $10,000 dinners. They're always talking about the $10,000 dinner. Well, it's $10,000 plate, right? Well, the limit for a federal race is around 2,800. So the first 2,800 of that 10,000 goes to the candidate, and then the rest of that goes to whatever PAC was putting that donation that program together, or the DNC, and then they get the rest of that money. So that's usually how that whole thing works, and it varies state by state. But the federal rates are pretty clear, and I'm simplifying a lot of this like severely. But so I'm sure I'll get some comments. Oh, that's not exactly right. You're right. It's not exactly right. Definitely ballpark right. And I don't want to bore people with the different categories that you can do. The reason that, like I mentioned, that Schiff had a reason to come out and say what he did was because the donors, and this has actually been backed up. There's been articles now written over the last 48 hours. It's the donor elite that are calling these candidates saying, hey, you need to push Biden out. And it's not just push Biden out. They want to push the whole ticket out. Because
I know they want to get rid of Kamala too.
Yeah, which is nonsense. Also not going to happen. Because for one thing, to set up a national campaign, you need months to just to get up and running. Okay, so let's operate in a fantasy world and say, okay, so the Biden campaign magically goes away, right? So there's a bunch of staff that are now free. They're going to go off and do other things. There's staff there that only we're going to work with Biden. They may not like who the donors pick. There are candidates I don't like, I wouldn't work for, and they're Democrats, but I'm just like, no, I know how he treats his people, or I know how she is. I've heard too many stories. I'm just not. It's a high stress environment. The last thing you need is an abusive person at the top, So, and although I've found, because I think I've done this for so many decades at this point, right? I can work with just about anybody. I've actually come into programs that were well on their way, but they needed a data director, and the last three guys had quit because the person operating the PAC at the top is a bit abrasive. I found her to be completely delightful. I like that she was no nonsense, and she got right to the point, and I didn't have to listen to a diatribe. She was very succinct, and I think some people can confuse that with rude. I don't confuse it with anything but getting stuff done. So I absolutely enjoyed it completely. And the other one guy didn't even last 2 weeks. And I was like, everyone, and then I had, like, before I was onboarded, they're like, okay, so she's a little bit da-da-da. Are you going to be okay? A lot of, white guys my age, some of them have a problem taking orders from a woman of color. I mean, that's a thing. It's called chauvinism. And I don't have to tell anyone on this thread that it's not a thing. It's a thing. I've only worked with minorities because I've worked in Democratic politics forever. So most of my candidates have either been the LGBTQ community, African American, Hispanic. In fact, the first candidate I ever worked for was Chamorro from Guam. Good luck. I've worked with Palauan candidates, Samoan candidates. So I can talk and work with anybody,
right?
Because I always had to. It was never a thing for me, because it's weird to have a candidate that looks like me. That's the outlier for me, because they mostly are female, person of color, LGBTQ, not the straight white guys. I'm not my client's demographic.
Right.
So
some good news. The DNC chairman announced today that Biden is still the nominee.
Yeah, he was never not going to be.
No. Andre, we don't mean to exclude you here, but did you have a question for Sean?
No, I'm listening to everything he's saying. The one thing that maybe he can speak to is this whole thing with the donors and the money. And what I was listening to this morning was that they're now also refusing to donate down ballot. So what does this mean? Because this is the thing that I think could put tremendous pressure on Biden, in that if that really dries up, what does it mean, to the campaign? And by the way, I'm totally with you that these theories that are out there about removing the entire ticket seem crazy to me. But what would happen, for example, is there a possibility that Biden just, in other words, that Kamala takes over rather than Biden? Does that still work, or is that completely out of the
I
question?
mean, he'd have to step down, and he's not gonna. So, I mean, it's really, yeah. I mean,
Well,
the whole reason we have two is for, in case, God forbid, something bad happened. That's why we have two always. So just in case something like that goes down, we're ready for that.
It's Biden Harris, so that money is linked to the two.
So yeah, so Harris would then get all of the infrastructure and machine and the campaign and everything would automatically. Well, there would actually be no change at all, really. So this is the other thing. So the Heritage Foundation, which is the bad guys, they're the ones who wrote that Project 2025 nonsense. Those guys had already started working with states' attorneys general and stuff so that they would file lawsuits against anyone changing the name on the ballot for the election anyway. They were like, yeah, go push Biden out. Oh, and then we're not going to let you put your candidate on the ballot. Good luck. That is their plan. Okay,
what?
yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. They were reporting that a week ago. Oh yeah. It's always a game. It's always a gambit. They're always trying to muck up the process all the time, constantly. Look at all these new laws about voting, registering to vote. Look at all the new laws of actually voting. All of it's designed to muck up the vote. Now, you gotta understand. So let's look at the U.S. Senate. It's basically a 50-50 split, right? I think we're 51, they're 49. But if you look at the population, the Republicans in the Senate, keep in mind they have almost as many votes as the Democrats right now, only represent 3% of the population of the country. It's not a 50-50 split. So because they're in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia. Georgia's actually got a decent population. Now there's senators there. But Texas, great population, two Republican senators. Texas is literally the only real state with any real population that the Republicans actually control. In Florida, they do all right in Florida. But yeah, if you look at all the other states outside Florida and Texas, there's hardly anyone living in those red states.
Right.
West Virginia, go Google how many people. So Harris County is where Houston is here in Texas, right? There are more voters in Harris County than most states. That's because no one lives in Wyoming, Montana. Those aren't. I mean, I've worked in counties with more registered voters than all of Wyoming. Just one county.
Right.
So when we're talking about U.S. Senate seats, and we talked a little bit about this the shows. It's an ROI. It's a cost.
Oh, you got stuck. Is he stuck on your end too, Andre?
Yeah, it's frozen.
Please come back. Please come back. Oh boy, I want to ask him what he said on your show about the states that we know Biden has to win. One of them people were worried about, and he said, "No, really, logically, this is how it would be." So I'd like to ask him that. Sean may have to come out and come back in. Yeah, just like I said he was going to do. So this has been exciting. I'm glad the DNC chairman announced that Biden is still on the ticket. And Water Lily announced that on Twitter, Biden just wrote, "I'm still in."
off the planet. I fell off the planet. My bad.
All of a sudden, it was frozen.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. Anyway,
logically, frozen means ice cream, which means I had to go get some ice cream. I'm
right.
just kidding.
So what I was saying was that there's an ROI, a return on investment. So if you've got a state that's only got, 1 million registered voters that you can go in and run a race and, do that thing. Well, there's 2.4 million registered voters just in Harris County. There's 1.2 million registered voters in Dallas County. So we're, to run a race in Texas, to go after like what Colin Allred's doing right now, to go after a Senate seat is insanely expensive. To do a real field program in Texas to win Texas, you need to operate in 18 counties. Your field program alone is going to be $40 million.
Yeah.
So, and that's knocking on 1 million doors.
Now, you on your last show, and I hope you guys watched, I put the link on my show in my community page. You had mentioned the states that Biden needs to win. Is there 5?
So it's Wisconsin, it's Michigan, it's Illinois, it's those are the 3 big ones.
But one of them, the numbers were showing different, and you said, no, that's not right. You were talking about that.
Yeah. So I think it's which one was it? Because that was like a couple weeks ago, and the numbers keep changing. I think it was Wisconsin that was off. And I'm like, so Wisconsin Democrats are insanely well organized. They just got their Supreme Court figured out. That took them 13 years to do.
Can you believe it? I was so happy. And it's all thanks to Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, Roe is definitely the biggest issue. When we were in Virginia doing their state races last November, because they do it in the odd years, we targeted 5 state house seats and we won 4 of the 5. And every commercial was women's rights. I mean, you understand the GOP is pushing a policy to nationally ban something that affects 52% of the population. The Supreme Court was designed to give rights to people, not take rights away. This new Supreme Court is taking rights away from people. It's unacceptable, and not really what their job is there to do.
Which helps people to vote for Biden because he wants to do something about them.
Oh yeah, no, you got to vote for Biden. Got to vote all up and down the ticket, blue all the way down.
But also, we're all angry at Adam Schiff and everybody. But I will tell you this: my prediction, and you probably, I'm not a pollster, was that by September we should be full system go. And I want to say, forgive those that initially were like, no, you can't include Biden because we have to go blue, like you said, all the way.
Yeah, we need the Senate, we need the House. Biden can't really do much without the Senate and the House.
So we have to forgive them.
Yeah, we cannot do ethics reform for the Supreme Court so that they can no longer take $1 million vacations from huge Republican donors.
And go to Russia.
Oh, yeah. No, there's judges, like the Supreme Court can, but judges that work like at the state level can't or the federal level can't. I mean, it's just there's a huge double standard happening, and it's unacceptable. Yeah. And we got to have the Senate, and we've got to have the House. Now, I've got a couple of opinions are a bit controversial.
What?
We have 13 districts in the federal court system. 13. We have 9 justices. There's no reason why we can't have 13 justices.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we should have expanded the court.
I'm sure that's on Biden's list. He hasn't.
No, he's talking about ethics reform. He hasn't mentioned expansion because what's going to happen is the Republicans are going to be like, "Oh, you're padding the court. It's a grab. It's a grab of power." They already grabbed the power. They already packed the court. Mitch McConnell has done more damage to this country than any human being, and it says he's done more damage than Trump.
Yeah,
100% more damage than Trump.
Trump doesn't like him.
Yeah. I mean, you can count on 2 hands how many judges had been thrown out by the U.S. Senate for nomination until Obama got there, and then it was every judge. Hundreds of judges were thrown out. You couldn't find 10 prior to that. in our entire country's history.
Wow.
So, the fact that Mitch McConnell, and you can blame others in my own party, and I do. Harry Reid, love that guy. Met him a bunch of times. Really super nice guy. Comes about here on me. It's also weird when you meet them in person. You're like, oh, okay. It's like, but he was in the Navy. He was actually a lightweight, a boxer in the Navy. Anyway, talk to the guy. He's a really cool guy. But he also thought that everyone was still playing by the same rules. He thought that Mitch McConnell was going to play by the same rules.
No.
And I'll honestly say, when McCain passed away, that's when all of them. I mean, McCain, I think, was almost like a moral rudder for those guys.
I know.
And ever since he's been gone, they're rudderless. They're complete garbage.
Right.
I mean, Mitch McConnell was always pretty much garbage anyway. But now, I mean, he ran roughshod over the Supreme Court. They got rid of the filibuster for their Supreme Court justices after saying, "Oh, you got to have 60 votes." Blah. And the second that they had Trump in there, 60? Nah, we can do it with 51. We're cool. It was like they changed the rules completely. Harry Reid thought they were going to abide by the same rules. That's why Harry Reid abided by those rules. Also, that 60-vote majority nonsense in the Senate is not in the Constitution.
There you go.
It's just an agreed-on rule that they renew every time they come into office. It's just not.
Biden was a little bit soft, too. He thought he could work across the table.
Biden thought they were still playing by the rules. Absolutely. And they were like, nope.
I have a friend who works in politics, and she really wanted me to ask you this question, if you know it.
If I can answer, yeah.
What are the best sources for political views instead of mainstream media?
So I think actually we talked about this on your show last time. I tend to read the AP.
AP?
Yeah. I'm a liberal. I listen to NPR, I have their app on my phone. I have AP's app on my phone. Al Jazeera does a decent job. They do a lot of coverage you're not going to see, especially with Palestine or stuff that's happening down in the Middle East and in other, like France and other countries that have large Muslim populations. In America, where we have a very large Muslim population, we're a melting pot. So those are the three that I probably listen to the most.
What about Reuters? Do you listen?
Reuters, Reuters is great. Didn't mean to. Yes, Reuters is great. Love them. I do BBC as well. France has a couple of pretty good English. I took some French in college and high school, but none of it stuck. So they have a good English version of their media. But yeah, if you're talking about the big ones, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, they all have an agenda. Like, there's some things I'll listen to MSNBC about, but some things I won't. When we were talking about the ACA, Obamacare and all that, go count how many big pharma commercials there are in some of these outlets. It's every other, if not every commercial, So when they talk about stuff that affects big pharma, I consider the source.
Right. And also, she wanted to know, what do you think of Simon Rosenberg? Do you know who he is?
Yeah. I don't follow Simon very much.
Okay.
I mean, you gotta understand, it's like there's so much out there. And I'll, I can go back and take a look again, but if I spent, I've got work to do. You got to triage and pick your sources and just keep checking in on them, because and understand, and never stop learning and never stop watching the news, because it's all coming through a filter. And once you understand that, you can see it, and then you can kind of like filter out their filter, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So I like going to the source. and Reuters and AP and those guys, if you actually go look, and it's pretty funny because I'll read AP and then I'll read, then somebody will share a New York Times article with me, and they'll cut and paste AP right into their articles. Absolutely. I've seen it. I'd be reading this going, I've read this already today. Oh, it was in AP. Because they're just the facts. So if you're reporting, you have an opinion, it's what I call a fact sandwich. You got opinion, and in the middle there's going to be facts. And those facts are usually pulled right from whoever reported it, which is like the AP, Reuters, and all those.
Right. Andre, you have another question?
No, I'm just listening at the moment. I know that I've been looking at AP since Sean suggested it, and you can sense the tone is more neutral to what is happening and less, an article that leads with something more sensationalist. So that's totally true. No question.
Yeah, it's like reverse clickbait.
Yeah.
It's almost boring to a point where thank you. I mean, it's just the facts. It's kind of what the news was, before the 24-hour news cycle started in the 90s. The news was, if you wanted to watch the news, you had 3 channels PBS. They are the most boring, best news program. Love them so much. There's no hype. There's no nothing. PBS is I grew up on the McNeil News Hour,
PBS.
I love PBS. And in fact, as a kid, I watched PBS and Star Trek. That was what I watched before dinner with my parents. So yeah, no, it's PBS does a great job. If you're looking for like a nightly news program, go watch the News Hour. They do a great job.
Right.
Yep. Hakeem Jeffries, of course.
Full support for Biden.
Huh?
He just gave full support for Biden.
Yeah, of course. Well, the Congressional Black Caucus, the CBC, and the Hispanic Black Caucus in Congress has been 1,000% Biden since the beginning of this. It's just unrealistic that Hakeem's going to go against the. This is not the Congressional Black. The CBC and Hakeem Jeffries are they're locked. They're not. He is one of them, and the leader. So
was trying to say that he wasn't for Biden, and that was untrue because that
was absolutely untrue. Yeah, once I saw the CBC was going for Biden, I was like, well, we don't have to worry about leadership. Also, think about where the Democratic vote comes from, right? It's women of color, it's minority groups, it's marginalized communities like LGBTQ. Okay, none of these groups are coming out against Biden. Not a one of them. But if you look at the tent of the person that has been coming out against Biden, it's people who look like me.
Yeah, it's white.
I make up such an insane small part of the Democratic vote, the white straight male vote. It's not a thing. I mean, we vote, and I'm happy that we vote, and I'm glad we vote Democrat, but we are not the majority of the votes in the Democratic Party. And if we were, there'd be no Republican Party left.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Also, I talk about the Democrats and Republicans, but when I talk to my candidates, I talk about the largest party in this country, and I call them the apathy party. They need a reason to vote. They're apathetic. They're like, or my favorite one is, they're all the same. Furthest thing from the truth. That actually pisses me off more than just about anything anyone can say, is that the parties are the same. I'm like, no, I can assure you they are not the same. If anyone out there wants to see a really good hour-long, just 100%, I have a huge crush on AOC. She did a great 1-hour video that she tweeted out today. I recommend everyone go watch that.
She's so
yeah. That congresswoman is my hero.
Be a future president. She's that good.
I'd vote for. I'd vote. Well, she's not old enough yet, but I'd vote for her now.
Oh yeah, she's her and Pete Buttigieg. They're excellent.
I love Pete. Actually, Pete's done a great job as his position, transportation. He's been doing a bang up job. He's also been given the largest infrastructure building program since the 50s. So not only is he doing a great job, he's got a huge job to do.
And AOC, guess where she's at? Puerto Rico. What is she doing? She's giving electric generators and everything thanks to Pete Buttigieg and President Biden with the money they're doing to help our peoples.
Right. And what I loved about AOC's campaign when she first, and I've been following her since the beginning, before she was elected. I saw her, I think it was a video on Twitter or maybe Facebook. I don't know exactly where, but I watched her. I was like, man, she's smart. She is smart. She is gorgeous. She has nothing but great things to say. And
there's no lip filling, and there's no.
Oh no, she is authentically just a beautiful person inside and out. She comes from, she was a bartender, which is, I think, perfect training for Congress because you can handle idiots and nonsense. Bartenders, and they know their business, and they know how to manage and handle people that are completely off their mind, out of their mind. And that's perfect for Congress, in my opinion. Perfect. Right. Perfect training.
You would think, honest to God, Sean, you would think that 2025 bull would just send people running in the opposite direction.
Oh, so we talked a little bit about this, Andre, last time about the likely voter and then registered voter, and they do these polls, and you'll always hear they polled likely or they polled registered. So registered voters, they're polling people that are registered to vote, right? They're just going out there and just hitting, and I think 9 times out of 10, one would hope that they would be using some kind of analytics. Yes, they're registered to vote. Have they registered to vote in the last 2 years? Blah, blah, blah. But you just never really know because they don't really tell you. When you look up those polls, they give you sample size, approximate universe, what kind of voter they were looking for. Well, if it's likely voter, so any female that's never voted before, that since Roe, so any females registered to vote in the last 18 months,
yeah,
maybe they voted in a primary, probably not, have no voter history at all, aren't getting polled.
Oh, I know.
How could they be?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no, and I'm telling you, and there's some counties in Texas that I watch. And one of them, I like to watch the number of registered voters and the demography of those voters. And the women are out registering the men in some of these, and these would be classified as very red counties in Texas. They're out registering the men 3-4 to 1.
Look what is happening even in Wisconsin. They got that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, when the Roe versus Wade thing happened with the Supreme Court, I told my viewers they have just awakened the sleeping giant.
So before I started doing these videos, and now people are actually going to, I can't. So anonymity is a great thing. Also, fun fact, I'm a white 6'1" straight dude. I can walk into a room of Republicans and they cannot see me coming.
15 pounds and svelte.
Like bro. That was the bro convention. I can't, that whole thing they did with the Republican thing. It's Hulk Hogan, and it's like a testosterone feast, basically. Yeah.
So looking the way I look, I can walk into some of these rooms and they don't know who I am, which is great. In fact, Roe hadn't been completely overturned yet. That letter had been leaked that this was what they were going to do. I walked into a room with some in just south of Dallas. It was a small little fundraiser kind of meet and greet with very, very wealthy Republicans. And my friend who worked for one of the municipal airports got invited because he does a lot of business and just, business development, and a lot of the counties he touched was rural. So he got invited to this thing and calls me up and goes, "Hey man," I'm like, "Ooh, I want to come. I will be a Reagan Republican. I will be a moderate, what would be considered today a moderate Republican, because I know all the talking points, because this is what I do." So I got to walk into that room. Every single one of them, a congressman, state house reps, I'm not going to mention any names, but I guarantee you, they were all freaking out that the Supreme Court was going to overturn Roe, because they've been raising money and ginning up their vote using that issue for the last 40 years.
No kidding.
They've raised trillions of dollars for Republicans over the last 40 years because, the Democrats are killing babies, and all that nonsense. That's been their cash cow. Like, now that's why you hear so much more about immigrants than you ever have. It's because all they got left is racism.
Yeah.
That's it. That's their next big cash cow. So they lost the Roe one. Now they're trying to push. Oh, I love Jasmine.
I love Jasmine.
I love Jasmine Crockett. I'm actually sitting in her district right now. Huge Jasmine Crockett fan. I call her my Texas AOC. She's awesome. She's awesome. I love Jasmine all day. So in the Congress, and she's done more as a congresswoman. She replaced EBJ, who had been in Congress forever, but she was much older. And EBJ is actually 100% with the ACA. She was awesome on that because she was actually a trained nurse. She had a medical background. So when she would actually go talk about the ACA, stumping out there, and back in 2009, she was huge on that. And I'm glad that Crockett picked up everything that EBJ had been doing and is now moving everything forward. It's just been great. Having her a voice in those committees, and who she is, who she represents, a marginalized community in this country, and the fact that also she grew up in South Dallas politics, people. Good luck. They don't play down here. It's for real. Right. They are street, 100%. They do not play. No, go for it. You want a piece of that? Go for it. I'm saying.
So what's on the agenda for you now? You're doing your show. If other people ask you to be on their show, like
sure.
fellow light workers, would you?
Yeah. No, I'm always game. I like talking to new people. I like talking to groups. Okay. Keep in mind, like most of the people I talk to are usually running for office. I don't really get to talk to normal people. So I enjoy talking to normal people because, for one thing, because you can sit in a bubble so easy in this game. That's actually why I like Fieldwork and knocking on doors. I'll go out with my teams. For one thing, it's a real easy way to make sure your data set's correct. And also to make sure that the turf that's being cut is as productive and as efficient as possible. There's nothing better than going out there and knocking on doors yourself. Not many people at my level will do that because, we're very busy. But I like to at least go out 1 or 2 days just to do a sample, see what the ROI, see what the door opening rate is. Is it 25? Is it 15? Do I have people crossing 4 lanes of traffic to there are certain things you can do in a field program that you won't know to do until you've been out there in the field. And I've walked with my candidates. In fact, I'm going to have a couple of my candidates on my show that I've worked with in the past. One of them was a commissioner candidate. We knocked on 14,000 doors just together, me and her. And we had a great time doing it. And quite honestly, she was and she fell in love with it, talking to the people. It's a great way to talk to people. Also, that's why I always tell candidates, they don't want to talk to me. They don't talk to you. You're a candidate, I'm just a guy standing there with the book, or, that's it, or the camera taking photos.
Work for your candidate, which I did. I worked tirelessly even
I honestly don't know how many doors I knocked on for Obama. I truly do not have a clue.
Yeah.
I did keep notes. That's how I know how many doors we all knocked on for Obama. And I know which candidates stepped up and which candidates didn't. I have a 41-page paper I wrote as an after-action report from just Obama Dallas. Right after that was all done, I talked about how the county spent their money, how we used our resources, the whole thing. I got a lot of pushback from when I did that, and definitely it cost me money in clients.
But you're a light worker, my friend. You're helping a lot of us not panic.
I always panic. In my business, it's not, the question isn't, are you paranoid? The question is, are you paranoid enough? Everyone just go out there and be paranoid enough and go vote.
And if you can't work for you, whoever you love, send a couple of bucks, send the money.
Always. Yeah, no, there's, I also get asked this question quite a bit. I'd love to share this a little bit with your people. They always ask, well, where can I get the best information about the races that are in my area, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the League of Women Voters. I cannot say enough about their organization. They are brilliant. Their voter guides are nonpartisan. Their voter guides are amazing. They're who I use. Because, I'm in this, but a lot of times I'll be like in Wisconsin or Florida or someplace. I'm not at home where I should be reading the local news, learning about my local candidates. I can go to them, say, this is the county I live in, and they'll give me, whoever filled out their questionnaire, all the information that candidate said. It's brilliant. The League of Women Voters do such a great job. And they're absolutely, and I hate to use this phrase because it's been misused so much, they are fair and balanced.
There you go.
100%.
I'll put that in the comments down below.
Yeah, no, they're great. They're just and they work so hard. Also, there's a website people can go to called Ballotpedia, like ballot, like you vote, and then pedia. You can Google Ballotpedia. They're also a nonprofit. You can look up Republicans, you can look up Democrats. I actually go to them. I look up it's a really easy, quick kind of cliff notes to go in and look at where a candidate's getting their money and from what industries. Oh yeah, it's super. Yeah, there's a lot of really good websites for that. But that one's good. It does a good job, and sometimes they'll be looking at like candidates that like city council and stuff and that level. They do drill into some of the bigger counties and actually do some really good work. And you can donate to them too, and they're 100%. They really do a good job.
So listen, I don't like to go over. We're almost at an hour because people have a hard time staying awake. But can you believe we got 2,719 people in the room?
Wow, it's awesome.
Isn't that great? And
That's
listen, when you come back.
Yeah. Well, great. I'll be back. No problem.
Okay.
What's cool is I'm probably heading to St. Louis. It looks like. Or maybe Florida. We're still figuring out where exactly I may be heading out. But I'm going to do from my channel. I'm going to do videos from the field talking about the different practices and like literally as I'm doing them, so that people can it kind of pulls the curtain back and says, "This is. Hey, anyone want to see some sausage made? This is it." So yeah, no, it's gonna be really cool, and it's a really interesting opportunity for me to be able to do that. It's one thing to tell people how stuff actually works when you're on the ground and in the field, and it's another thing to show them how it works when you're in the field. And I'll look real tired, big bags. It's 15, 20-hour work days are not unusual. Like when we were in Virginia, my day started at 6 a.m. and I usually finish doing all of my data reports by around 11:30, 12 at night.
Dang.
So those are real days, man. 16-hour days, and they do not play. And so yeah, so those people out there doing this work, they say it's a 24-hour job. Yeah, it's real.
Well, thank you so much, Sean. It was wonderful having you here. Thank you, Andre, for showing up.
It's good to see you, Andre. I'll come back onto your show anytime.
All right, man. Likewise.
Yeah, well, and you'll probably be getting a lot of requests. So
Well, I look forward to it.
yeah,
It'll be fun.
definitely. I want, as soon as Biden says I'm not stepping down, let's hook up again and
He
see.
sent a letter to Congress, says he's not stepping down. I'm pretty sure he said it. I mean, I don't know how many more ways they want him to say it at this point.
And the DNC chair said he's not stepping down, and Hakeem Jeffries. Hello.
I know. It's all coming in today.
Hello.
Welcome to Friday.
Bye, you guys. Love you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.